There's a shift taking place in the world right now, and it's a subtle shift, and you may or may not notice it depending on how you're affected by it. But the reality is that shift is taking place, and the knowledge that I'm going to share with you is going to help you understand what's happening in the world. And when I say what's happening in the world, I'm talking about the change in the weather patterns. I'm going to talk to you about the political climate that exists. I'm going to talk to you about the religious climate that exists. But this is not a political message. This is not a religious message. This is a message that has been delivered for 8 billion people. And somewhere in that continuum, you fit. So please take some time, close your laptops down for just a few minutes, and just listen to the knowledge. Because you have the right to accept it, reject it, or contemplate what is actually being taught. So here we go. We're going to talk to you about how life, your life, has evolved and where you originally came from. Before we do that, just for a couple of seconds, I want to talk to you about a couple of definitions. I want to talk to you about frequency, which we talked about in an earlier video. But this frequency I'm talking about is basically not the frequency of something happening over and over again and being consistent. That's part of the meaning of frequency. The frequency I'm talking about is the particles and the waves that come together and vibrate together so that we create a given wavelength called a frequency. Now, there's billions and billions and zillions of frequencies throughout the universe. And we're going to change that word. So the second word, along with frequency, that we're going to talk about is universe. And I'm going to ask you to change your thought process on the universe and change it to universal. And pretty soon you're going to hear why I'm going to ask you to do that. But the word universe interprets life as being external, out there someplace, without you having control of it. But the universal I'm talking about is what supplies you so that you can build your reality. So let's get started. Assume that what I'm indicating here are essence particles. This is you. And over here are waves. And those essence particles and waves came together billions and billions of years ago. It's eternal. And when I say that it's eternal, I mean there really was no beginning and no end. It's just the way it is. It's the way that it works. And life works exactly the same for all of you. So you have these particles and these waves, and they are creating a frequency. And at the very core of everything that we do is the master frequency, if you will. Let me put some labels on it for you. Let me call it pure love or oneness, but it really is nothingness. And nothingness, as described for this discussion, is basically meaning that it's total love and compassion for each other. And that master frequency is outside what I'm going to explain to you as the universal. Stick with me on this, it gets better. And your essence particles dropped from that master frequency, if you will, in search of something different, something which you thought was better than peace and tranquility and love and compassion. So these essence particles dropped away and created separation. Now, when they dropped away, they contained water. And we'll get into this a little bit deeper, but water has memory. So that the very first thing that they thought of when they dropped away, was the separation. They were separating from what they had always been part of. And then those particles, the essence particles, which are you, by the way. You are an essence. And those particles dropped away, and when they did, they went into this universal blackness and created what we're going to call the universal consciousness. Because when they dropped away, the very first thing they thought about was trying to get back to where they came from. But not so fast. It wasn't that easy. They had made the mistake of dropping away, of separating, and when they made that mistake, they had to learn lessons in order to go back to oneness. And the reason for that is that once they got back to oneness, they were going to have to stay there for eternity, because that is pure love. Now, for those of the religious mindset, I'm going to make this easy for you. Please stay with me. Some of you have already left, but you'll be back. I'd like you to understand that what we're talking about is a frequency of love and compassion. And if you need to, you can take this series that I call The Power of Knowing How Life Works, and you can use the power of knowing how God works if you need to do that. But I want 8 billion people to grasp this, because this is how it works. It only works one way, and this is it. And I know it sounds pretty arrogant of me to say that I've got the answers. I know Stephen Hawking was giving you a warning that this information was coming. Not that I was coming. He had no idea who I was. But the reality is that Stephen Hawking proposed that the theory of everything is on its way. Look him up. You'll see it. Well, here it is. So we're going to call this not the theory of everything. We're going to call this the story of everything. It's the story of life and everything. And the reason that Stephen Hawking knew that it was coming along was he knew there was something more. Tesla knew there was something more. Einstein knew there was something more. There was messengers that have been with us for thousands of years. And you know who they are. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Moses and Jesus and the prophet Muhammad and Joseph Smith. All of those messengers were trying to clarify for you how life works. And if I seem a little passionate about this, you may see a couple of tears in my eyes, because this is what we need to know to evolve back to oneness. So as we talk about these essence particles, and they've separated, and they've gone out into the universal consciousness, they still stayed separated, and so they travel through this universal consciousness, and they have to learn the lessons in order to get back to the frequency of pure love, the frequency of oneness, the solitude of nothingness. So you now know that even though there's no beginning or no end, that frequency out there exists. And let me just give you a couple of definitions right now. Life, L-I-F-E, living in fear eternally. Living in fear eternally. Please grasp that, because as soon as we separated from that frequency of pure love that always was, always will be, as soon as we made that separation, we started living in fear of trying to get back to it. And if you just look at life as you know it right now, in this dimension, you live in fear every day. Everybody does. If you have a lot of money, you're in fear of losing it. If you have no money and you're in fear of what meal you're going to eat next, or where you're going to find a place to sleep, we always live in fear. That is what life is. Living in fear eternally. We have to learn our lessons before we're allowed to go back to that original message. Oneness. We're going to explain, and this does explain it, what consciousness is. So those essence particles that are floating around in the universal consciousness are communicating with each other. And that communication, those frequencies that go from essence particle to essence particle, have been taking place and developing for billions of Earth years. And as they have developed, we have to have places where you can take these essence particles yourself in different dimensions, different cosmos, different universes, universals now. But in order to do that, they had to have classrooms. You're going to laugh at this one. You see, they think the Big Bang was what caused the universe. No, it was the effect. The real cause was all of these essence particles building up energy between them and then gathering together because they had separated and there was no place else to go but to with each other. That energy built up and exploded, creating the classrooms for these essence particles. One of those classrooms, we happen to label it Earth. So you come to Earth, to the classroom, to learn what to do and what not to do. We'll address that a little bit further down in some of these videos. My name's Don Saunders. I hope that you join us for all of our future YouTube videos.